This is 9 News with Davina Smith.
Good morning. We're learning more details about a horror shooting at a university in Prague and what's being labelled the worst mass attack in the Czech Republic's history. 14 people are dead and dozens are injured. When 24-year-old student opened fire, his classmates left clinging to a ledge in an attempt to hide. Our Europe correspondent Brett McLeod has the latest.
Well, scenes of horror unfolded in Prague in the mid-afternoon. The first shots rang out just after 3 o'clock, sending students and others in the old town panicking as they tried to find shelter, some having to cling to a ledge before jumping down to safety as the gunman went on his rampage. It was in Charles University. Students were told to shelter in place, some taking to barricades before they were moved to safety. Unfortunately, though, many people died, including the gunman. What's known about him is that he was 24 years old. His father had been found dead at their house some hours before he went on his rampage. He posted some very disturbing comments on social media. Police say he may have been inspired by another mass shooting. They say there's no known links to international terrorism. Multiple firearms were found at the scene. They believe the man did act on his own. And they're also investigating whether these killings were preceded by him carrying out the murders of a father and child in a forest a short time before. And many other leaders from around the world have expressed their condolences as well.
Australian cricketer Usman Khawaja has spoken for the first time since being charged by the International Cricket Council for breach of their code of conduct. We'll go straight to Braden Ingram, who's at the MCG in Melbourne for us. Braden, good morning. It was very powerful. What's he had to say?
Well, Davina, he was on hand to launch Cricket Australia's new multicultural action plan, but instead much of the focus was about his stand in recent weeks. Now, I know originally he wanted to wear shoes in Perth which had pro-Palestine messaging on them. He wasn't able to do that, so he wore that black armband that you mentioned, and that's what has contravened the ICC's rules and has earned him a reprimand. Now, he says today that that black armband that he wore was for personal bereavement reasons and not to show a human rights stand, but he says he won't be wearing it on Boxing Day. He understands now that is the ICC rules and he won't earn himself a second strike. Regardless, he says that, look, he thinks the ICC has been a little bit cloudy on this matter and that ultimately he just wanted to show his support in a broad sense, given that the matters overseas have hit him so hard.
Guys have put stickers on their bats, names on their shoes, done all sorts of things in the past without ICC approval and never been reprimanded. I don't have any agendas other than trying to shine a light on what I feel really passionately, really strongly about. I'm trying to do it in the most respectful way as possible.
Now, as I say, he won't wear that black armband on Boxing Day, but he does say he's in separate talks with Cricket Australia as to how he can show his support to the people of Gaza. Davina?
OK, Braden, thank you. It is another busy day ahead for WA firefighters. High alert after an intense blaze destroyed 2 homes in Perth's east. Let's go live to our reporter Brittany Hoskins, who's in Parkerville for us. Brittany, good morning. What is the focus there for crews today?
Davina, strengthening containment lines and managing spot fires ahead of what will be another hot day here in Perth. In Parkerville, the fire is contained and controlled, but you can see the destruction it's left behind. It's hard to believe that 12 hours ago, a family home of 17 years stood behind me. Today, it's ash and rubble, Christmas presents, personal belongings, clothing, items that can't be replaced, all destroyed in the blaze. Now, the blaze broke out around 9:30 yesterday morning. Evacuations ordered for residents here as crews attacked the out-of-control bushfire from the ground and above. Sadly, there was nothing they could do to save 2 properties, including this one. Now, the homeowners tell me they had planned to host Christmas Day here. Instead, they're facing an uncertain future. It's been a challenging few days for fire crews with out-of-control blazes across the state. This morning, residents are advised to keep up to date on emergency WA. Davina.
OK, Brittany, thank you. Well, the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, is in Far North Queensland today as the state grapples with the aftermath of ex-tropical cyclone Jasper. Abby Gearan filed this report from Cairns.
The Prime Minister has today announced a fourth round of disaster assistance funding for those affected by the Far North Queensland flood disaster. It's dedicated to small businesses and primary producers, with $25 million set aside for each. Anthony Albanese touring the region today alongside Queensland Premier Stephen Miles. The pair attending a barbecue breakfast for emergency services workers and energy crews leading this recovery before meeting residents in Holloway's Beach, one of the hardest hit suburbs in Cairns' northern beaches, where some have lost everything.
When you see those footage of waters rushing through the main streets of not just Cairns but the beaches to the north, communities like Wudjil have been devastated by this.
The PM has admitted more support will be needed. So many people here are uninsured, and $1,000 emergency payments for individuals won't go far to fixing all the damage across this region.
A political fight is escalating over the federal government's decision not to send a warship to the Red Sea to protect vital shipping lanes from Houthi militants. We'll go live to our federal politics reporter Fiona Willan-Fee. Good morning. The PM has been on the defence this morning.
Well, Davina, the opposition has called this a weak decision, and that appears to be getting under the government's skin. Anthony Albanese has strongly defended it this morning, and the Deputy Prime Minister will be addressing the matter very shortly too. So this is after the government confirmed Australia will not be sending a warship to the Red Sea. The US Defence Force had asked 39 countries, including Australia, to do this in a bid to protect shipping lanes from militants who have been attacking cargo ships. The coalition has called on the government to reverse its decision not to contribute, saying it's in our national interest to be part of this as we rely on those trade routes. The government argues our Navy's priorities lie closer to home in the region, including the Pacific and the South China Sea. And the PM says the US administration understands that, pointing out that this request did not come from the top.
Where has the request been from the US administration? We work very closely with our American friends. And if Peter Dutton wants to continue to just snipe at the sideline at decisions that have been made by the Australian government with the support of the Australian Defence Force, that's a matter for him.
Now, the government says it is contributing by sending up to 6 extra personnel to be part of a combined maritime force in the region. Davina?
Fee, thank you. A woman has suffered serious injuries after being pulled from a burning apartment complex in Melbourne's southeast. Jack Hahn explains.
Well, residents here in Port Melbourne were awoken to the sounds of screams just after 5 o'clock this morning. When they got up, they realised that somebody was trapped in a burning unit on the first floor of this complex. It only took fire and rescue crews 4 minutes to respond to this address. They worked closely, even with residents helping to pull this woman to safety and douse the flames before the fire spread to nearby units.
Firefighters had to force entry into that unit to locate the woman. So crews did a fantastic job to undertake that task, and they did that wearing breathing apparatus.
I ran up the stairs, yeah.
You just couldn't get in the front door?
I tried to, but the handle broke, so yeah. There's not much we could do.
Meantime, in the suburb of Fawkner in Melbourne's north, a family of 5 have lost everything in their home as a 2-storey property went up in flames minutes before midnight. It took 30 firefighters in 10 trucks 2 hours to get the upper hand on the blaze. Residents nearby were told to stay inside as smoke was billowing high into the sky, and an elderly man that lived in a nearby property had to seek shelter. It was too dangerous for him to evacuate until fireys got the upper hand. Nobody was injured in that blaze. This is certainly a tragic night in Melbourne, with 2 separate house fires just 3 days from Christmas.
And a huge blaze has destroyed a timber warehouse in Milpera in Sydney's southwest, with smoke seen for kilometres. Maggie Rayworth has more from the scene.
As you can see behind me, this warehouse has been gutted. When fire tore through last night, it destroyed the entire business. Just before 5, the timber manufacturer became an inferno. Huge flames were seen bursting from the site. Smoke was seen from kilometres away. The blaze did pose a threat to neighbouring properties. At least 60 firefighters battled the blaze. They did manage to contain the fire, preventing it from spreading to surrounding buildings. Nobody was hurt. Thankfully, there wasn't anyone inside at the time. The incident unfolded here on Range Street at Milperra. 9 News spoke with the owners today. They say they've owned the business for 25 years and now they're concerned for their 7 staff members who are now out of work.
A significant wind change came in during the early stages of that fire and started to intensify it and pushing the flames onto the adjoining buildings. We had a number of gas cylinders that our firefighters had to remove. One of them actually did boil off and detonate, causing significant risk.
Fire and Rescue New South Wales say the cause of the blaze is still being investigated.
And 30 residents were forced to flee in the early hours of this morning as a shop caught fire in Sydney South. Police and firefighters were on the scene at Sylvania just before 2 a.m. to find the complex engulfed in flames before it spread to other units. Thankfully, no one was hurt. Ready, set, travel. Millions hit the road and skies for this weekend. The holiday rush with full flight, what you need to know next. Plus legal drama for Vin Diesel, the serious sexual assault allegations against the Fast and Furious star. And Rudolph, is that you? The moment 3 deer fly through the sky. Well, just in case you've lost count, it is 3 days out from Christmas and it's heralding a rush on our roads and airports as thousands head off for the festive season. Alex Heinke reports from Sydney Airport.
Well, across the course of the morning, the Sydney Airport really is reaching capacity, long lines and plenty of wait times as well as people take to the skies ahead of Christmas. Today and across the weekend, obviously in the lead up to Christmas, is expected to be the busiest times for airports for the entire year, but not just here in Sydney, right across the country. A report card has just landed in terms of the airline's departure times, arrival times and cancellation rates. Top of the list is Qantas and Jetstar. Lagging in third place is Virgin Airlines. Something to keep in mind if you're still yet to book your tickets this silly season. Anyone travelling in and out of Brisbane today as well, make sure you give yourself plenty of time. It's expected to be the busiest day at the Brisbane airport since COVID, with some 20,000 passengers through the doors. It goes without saying, but at this busy time of the year, make sure you give yourself plenty of time on arrival so you don't miss your flights.
Serious accusations have been levelled against Fast and the Furious star Vin Diesel, a former assistant to the Hollywood actor, accusing him of sexual assault. Here's our US correspondent Lauren Tomasi.
These allegations against Vin Diesel date back to 2010, a time when the actor was shooting Fast and Furious 5. The lawsuit brought by a former assistant, Asta Jonasson, who says the Hollywood actor sexually assaulted her in a hotel suite in Atlanta. Ms Jonasson says Vin Diesel molested her body and that she continually pleaded with him to stop. Hours later, she was fired by the actor's sister. Lawyers for Ms Jonasson addressing the lawsuit today, saying, "We are proud to represent Ms Jonasson and hold accountable Vin Diesel and those who allowed and covered up his sexual assault. The law exists to protect those who have been wronged, no matter how powerful or famous the defendant is." The lawsuit filed here in Los Angeles has been brought in the wake of the Me Too movement, meaning the statute of limitations has been waived.
Christmas air travellers have had a white-knuckle landing in Manchester and Birmingham, with Storm Pia sweeping much of northern England and Scotland. Gusts reaching 180 k's an hour in parts of the community, the weather causing major transport disruptions on trains to and from London. And adding more pain, a last-minute strike by Eurostar workers. Treasures from a 315-year-old shipwreck will be recovered in expeditions by the Colombian government. The San Jose, which sunk in 1708, is considered the holy grail of shipwrecks due to its cargo of gold, silver and emeralds, all up worth around $25 billion. The country's cultural minister says the expedition will be for archaeological research, not profit. The moment a ute loses control on a major highway, next how this driver walked away with barely a scratch. A woman charged over a $3.75 million card skimming scheme as police discover links to an organised crime network from Romania. And India puts Australia in a spin on day one of the women's test. To breaking news now, the nation's biggest not-for-profit health and aged care provider has been hacked. In the last half an hour, St Vincents has confirmed it was cyber-attacked on Tuesday with some of its data removed. The organisation says it has told authorities but is still working to determine what data has been compromised. St Vincents says healthcare hasn't been affected. Frightening new vision has emerged at the moment a ute flips at least 5 times on a major motorway in Sydney. It happened on the M4 at Penrith on Tuesday during the morning commute. The driver, a man in his 20s, was treated for minor injuries and taken to hospital, but only as a precaution. There's been another breakthrough for police over a $3.75 million card skimming scheme. Officers arresting a 26-year-old woman from Rockdale in Sydney's south. She's been charged with 133 offences and is the 4th person to be arrested. Police say the scheme has links with an organised crime network hailing from Romania. 25 people have been arrested during a 2-day police blitz in Melbourne's southeast. The operation targeted heroin dealers and their customers in Springvale. Among those who will face court include a 28-year-old man charged with possessing drugs while on bail. Sport news now, and India holds the upper hand heading into day 2 of the women's test against Australia. The hosts dismissed the Aussies for 219 in the opening day in Mumbai, as Tali McGrath top scored with 50 from 56 balls.
India bowled really well. They kept their plans really simple, attacked the stumps, and it was hard to score at times. A little bit disappointed I couldn't go on with it and get a big partnership with Moons and a big score myself. But that's cricket, and there's still hopefully 3 days of cricket to go.
India resumes at 1 for 98 this afternoon, trailing by just 121 runs. Well, the Heat have jumped into the top of the BBL ladder, Brisbane winning their 3rd match by 6 wickets over the Renegades in Melbourne. The Queensland side chased 162 with 11 balls remaining as Matt Renshaw hit an unbeaten 49 and English import Paul Walter smashed 30 from 15 balls. The Sixers are set to appeal a 4-match ban handed to Tom Curran after the former England international was charged with intimidation of an umpire. The incident occurred before their last match, where Curran was warned not to run onto the pitch that was being used for the game. After gesturing to the official, the paceman proceeded to run towards him, almost colliding, only missing because the umpire stepped away. Graham Arnold will give Socceroos captain Matt Ryan as much time as he needs to recover from a facial fracture in time for next month's Asian Cup, revealing the goalkeeper has a face mask to play in if needed. The Socceroos coach has named a 26-man squad for the tournament in Qatar, including uncapped players Patrick Yazbek, John Iredale and Gettin Jones. Bruno Fornaroli was also selected, rewarded for his stellar start to the domestic season with Melbourne victory. A-League champions, the Mariners, have shown what they're still capable of. Central Coast moving into the top 6 thanks to a 3-0 victory over the Roar in Brisbane. Fire and Rescue New South Wales members have come together this morning to farewell a colleague and volunteer firefighter Michael Kidd, who was killed during a house fire in Sydney's northwest. The force saluting the 51-year-old during a guard of honour at the service in Richmond. He leaves behind his wife and 2 children. The world's richest lottery is underway in Spain, with long queues at kiosks around the country as people queue for tickets. The state-run lottery, known as El Gordo, or the Fat One, will dish out 4.2 billion Aussie dollars in cash and prizes. It takes around 4 hours for the live TV draw to get through all the numbers, bringing Spain virtually to a standstill. And 'tis the season for flying reindeer, but of a different kind in the US. 3 of them were seen soaring above the skies in Utah. It's got nothing to do with Santa, though. It's part of the state's annual research into wild deer and their migration habits. And rest assured, we are told, have a look at those pictures, they are fine. Stay with us, the weather details are next. To the weather now around the country. Brisbane showers today, 26 degrees. Patchy skies for Sydney and 24. Cloudy in the nation's capital. Mostly fine for Melbourne and also Adelaide. A hot 32 degrees on the way for Perth. Darwin set for a shower or 2, humid and 35 degrees. Tomorrow's looking a bit wet and brizzy, 29 degrees. Sydney cloudy and 25. The showers will increase in Canberra. Clear skies for Melbourne, 25 degrees. Hobart, 20. Adelaide will reach 27. Still warm in Perth, 34 degrees and clear skies forecast. There's the chance of a storm in Darwin, reaching 35 degrees. Alice Springs will be a scorcher, 42. And that is Nine's Morning News. We'll be back at 4 p.m. with your afternoon news, 5 p.m. for Adelaide and for Perth. I'm Davina Smith. Thanks for your company. We'll see you soon.